behind the back here. Oh, little sidestep and a jam by Wembanyama.
This is the Morning Huddle on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star with Rob Thompson and the managing editor of Blogging the Boys, RJ Ochoa. Now, here's Rob and RJ.
Hey, gather around. There's a bunch to talk about. It's the Morning Huddle here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. Welcome to Small Friday, Big Thursday, whatever it may be. Going to be a fine sporting day all the way around. He's RJ Ochoa. I'm Rob Thompson. We bring you the huddle every day from 6 to 10. NBA playoffs are keeping us up late. Last night certainly did the job. Dallas, this Dallas, the Clipper series, I hate both teams. So it's the funnest games to watch because no matter what happens, I'm happy. Somebody going to lose.
That's some good perspective.
And Kawhi's not playing, so it makes it even sweeter.
Also good perspective. So it was, but kind of a boring game.
It was a boring, ugly game, which is exactly what the Mavericks wanted.
Wow, good for them.
It's a interesting situation that the entire Los Angeles basketball market finds themselves. You got Magic apologizing to the team. Saying that, well, you're not a bunch of idiots. Some of you are. They're all calling for the head coach's head, Darvin Ham, and guys like us kind of sit on the sidelines. Charles Barkley was on his show, the boys there on TNT.
This was tough.
This is funny.
Part of our job, we watch all the games and we watch all the talk shows. A lot of these people on television, they're cowards because they want the players to like them. They don't want to do their job, which is to tell the truth. And I just want to say this about coaching. Anybody who thinks the reason the Lakers suck is because of Darvin Ham or the reason the Suns suck is because of Frank Vogel, you don't know what you're talking about. Frank Vogel is a hell of a coach. Darvin Ham is a hell of a coach trying to get his career started. But for all you punks, idiots, and jackasses on other networks who want to be media and who want all the players to like y'all, do your damn job. The Lakers suck, and the Suns suck because of the players. Has nothing to do with the coaches. I feel better now.
Sure, I can tell. Looks like you are.
I'm glad Charles got that off his chest.
Like getting that off your chest.
I did. I hate it, man. You sit there like Darvin Ham needs to get fired. Frank Vogel needs to get fired. Who put them teams together? Them trash-ass teams put together need to get fired. Them guys, they didn't just all of a sudden suck as coaches. People who put them teams together they start packing up their stuff.
Charles Barkley last night on TNT.
Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Oh, well, I get what Charles is saying. I do, and especially in Phoenix. There's something endemic. They built their new practice facility, if they did, over some kind of burial ground. There's something bad luck happening down in the valley. New ownership who's, you thought they get rid of Sarver. They get rid of one of the worst dudes in all of sports. You thought they'd have been able to turn over a new leaf, but there's the hallways are still haunted with sexual harassment and bad jokes and poor team arrangements. I don't know, but if I'm Vogel, I look at it as shock probation. Get out of there, man. You end up with your daughter in the television set if you don't get out of there. There's something going on. So I feel safe there. Darvin Ham, I don't know, man. That's a big bite of apple for a young coach. I mean, I'm not sure he did a bad job. There's some clock management issues and things like that, but sometimes it doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing it. It's the environment you're doing it in. And I don't think anybody else could have done a better job given the scenario they were in. But sometimes you just need a new face saying it. And JJ Redick certainly feels like a good face to say it, right?
Yeah. I mean, these are unique situations. I think that Chuck has a fair point. I don't even want to say in a vacuum. I think it is just a fair point. But the reality of the situation, I also understand what you're saying. Like, oh, the Suns just have a lot going on.
Yeah,
but I don't know that I buy that we're at the end of the super team era the way that has been posturized. But the reality is, even if you think that end is coming, It's still not completely here. It's hard to be LeBron James's coach. It's hard to be the head coach of the Suns with KD and Book and Beal and everything. I mean, like, you're gonna be the fall guy. Like that's just the reality of the situation. And so, I'm not trying to say coaching doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say coaching is the end all be all, but it's a unique position. And so I understand the calls for some sort of change, but I also understand that this is just kind of the way it is.
It was the great Greg Popovich, when asked what was the secret to being a Hall of Fame coach, he was like, draft Tim Duncan and hang on for dear life.
That's really, I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like,
no true words are ever spoken.
It's like, oh no, look, like, are we really shocked that Frank Vogel didn't carry the Suns, or are we, or at the beginning of the playoffs, what was more likely, that Frank Vogel was going to carry the Suns and just
to consider where we are? It's very difficult. That's why I appreciate getting to know people that are historians, that look at history and kind of and they try to view modern times through the prism of what has already happened in the past, and see, that old saying, if you don't know it, you're doomed to repeat it. And do you know if you're in the end of a civilization while it's ending? Because when you're watching what's considered a super team now versus what was, and vice versa, think about what the Clippers would have been 5 years ago. The names that are rolling on that roster. I mean, think about what the Lakers were 5 years ago. I mean, the idea of, and even Phoenix with 4 years ago with Book, but with a younger version of all these guys. The problem is, the super teams, as we're talking about, are populated with nothing but old dudes. None of them they're all shadows of themselves if they can even find their way on the court. So super teams are always going to work if they're actually playing.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying is like, oh, the best teams in the NBA are going to work as long as they have the best players.
Well, I mean, to say that it's the end of the super team and then you only need 2, that's a fallacy. I mean, you need 3, you want 4. But the guys that have been gathered together on these super teams, they're all old or decrepit.
I think it's representative of where the NBA is at. Like, how many people, Frank Vogel has taken a lot of heat over the last, 3 days now, 2-3 days?
Yeah.
How much heat has, I know, but how much heat has there been for Kevin Durant?
I completely agree.
You've seen.
I mean, not nearly enough, because he went out and got 40 in the closeout. I mean, you can say, I did my job.
But okay, in the closeout, but I mean, it's a series. You know what I'm saying?
No,
like, how much heat has there been for Devin Booker? How much heat has there been for Bradley Beal? Like, do you look back on like Frank Vogel as a brilliant mind for all the success he's had? No, like we attribute all the success. There are 2 coaches that tend to get credit as coaches in the NBA. There's Pop and there's Eric Spoelstra.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I guess Rick Carlisle kind of is in that mold. Other than that, if you are a coach of any other team, you ain't getting anything. Like, it's just the players that get all the credit for this and that and the third. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm not quite with Chuck, but I think there's truth to his point about, like, I don't know what's, and even then, okay, even if you say we want to move on from Frank Vogel, okay, for what? Like, for who? Who are you, like, what's the like magic fix here that comes in and touches the Suns and makes them, this situation where everything thrives and flourishes all of a sudden?
You have to go ask Book. Well, you have to go ask them, and I feel like that's the only way that's going to be fixed, or you're going to have to get rid of them, or at least most of them, with the new coach. You can't do both. You're either going to have to bow to the whims or get rid of them that have whims.
So if the Sixers lose tonight, is it on Nick Nurse or is it on Embiid?
Oh, man. That is the true existential question that the 76ers are going to have to face, which is a silly question to have to deal with. I heard Legs saying it too. Man, this is Joel Embiid. Everybody just shut up. Everybody just settle down. I mean, he's playing, on a leg and a half, and his worst game in the playoffs, he had a triple-double. Everybody just shut up. So, but that being said, Nick Nurse is safe. He is absolutely fine. Nick Nurse is on a mercy mission to Philadelphia.
Okay, so was
They better
Nick
hope
Nurse
they can hold on to Nick Nurse if LA comes calling.
Was Nick Nurse a great coach, or was Kawhi amazing?
No, Nick Nurse is a very good coach.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, where do we draw the line?
No,
then?
there is no drawing the line. It is players, like I just said, the best that we've ever seen, if not of all time. Greg Popovich told us the secret to being a Hall of Fame coach is getting the best player you can possibly have and hold on to him for your entire career. And if you can manage to do that, you'll probably go to the Hall of Fame, just like your player will. So I agree. It is a players' league 98% of the time. 2% of the time, it is indeed coaches that make the absolute difference. Now, minute differences in individual games, coaches play a huge role. But on the whole, they're about 10% of the equation.
Okay, so I mean, well, you went from 98 to
well, I'm just
10%.
saying on a whole, when I'm talking about season, playoffs, timeouts, mistakes, all that, 10% is going to be the coach. They're going to lose some games.
Let's use the 10%. So for anyone, not to Chuck's point, who wants to, move on in LA or Phoenix, you want to diagnose and address 10% of the problem, right? Like that's the fix. Like, again, like I know you're just throwing out numbers and percentages, but like to live in that, if we agree, and I think that's a good number, that this is 90% of the impact, that's what we're going to focus 100% of energy and resources and attention on 10% of the problem.
But I can't fire the players.
I know you can't, but you've got to fix that 90%. That, like, the idea that the other, 10% is still going to be 10%. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could bring in the best 10% that there is, but it can't, it can't raise the other 90% if it's not good enough. Is there a coach in the NBA that if you put them on if you swap out with Frank Vogel to where, like, I'm asking you this legitimately, that they beat Minnesota with?
No.
So then, I mean, what are we doing here? Like,
there just wasn't. Now, I mean, we could argue.
Is there any coach who could put on the Lakers,
maybe, but 4 out of 7
to where they beat the Nuggets?
Well, the Lakers Nuggets, there is an argument that can be made that a couple of shots difference, this is a much different series. And that there's only one team that could have done to the Lakers what the Nuggets did, and it was the Nuggets. I mean, it was just, there's only one team in the West that could have possibly inflicted the kind of damage that was done to the Lakers, and they happened to get them in the first round. But if they hadn't, they'd have probably met them in the finals.
Well, but the Lakers also have LeBron James. I mean, so that's also what makes the conversation unique. I think the better case study is the Suns, and you agree there's not a coach in the league that you could have put on that team.
But I'm also a firm believer that there are times when coaches, despite their best efforts, just need to go. That the players aren't listening. It's kind of part of the job of being a coach is you have a message. That message needs to be understood and acted upon and believed in. And the moment that it's no longer one of those three things, kind of got to go or find another message.
We've established a championship
you get there
program.
on that message. And I'm not going to change my message. I'll go just change the listeners. So it's not when coaches get fired, there should be another term other than fired, like a mutual decision that is in fact truly it. Like, dude, I don't mind leaving. This is no fun for me either. They're not listening to me. They don't like me for whatever reason.
If you were the hottest coach in the NBA right now, you could have your pick of the non-sacred jobs, like the like
the non-sacreds,
or the non.
I know what you're saying.
The non-obtainable, right? Like you can't go to San Antonio. Like you can go to the realistic ones or the ones within reach of movement. Where would you go?
That is a good question.
I know. Thank you.
For me, I would go coach in Memphis.
What?
I would love to coach. Seriously, I would love to coach Ja Morant. I would love to be on the sidelines and find new and exciting ways to make Ja Morant a Superman. All I would do is dream all night long of ways that I can unleash some of the things that Ja could do. But that's one. Or there's the other thing. If I truly wanted to show my prowess, I think that Orlando is primed for greatness. If I was given 5 years and allowed to just keep a core, find my 4 dudes.
You can't be given 5 years. You don't know
3
you're
years.
given 5 years.
Give me 3 years.
You still don't know. You still don't know if you're given 3
I'd
years.
still take. I'd take Orlando overall because there's so many pieces there, and if the right guy walks in, you could truly create something special. I believe that. If you can hold on to what you got, augment with a couple of veterans, Orlando is primed to do something that is really cool. They got 3 or 4 guys that are legitimate All-NBA types.
Let me specify.
Just not quite old enough.
All right, let me close the parameters a bit here. So you're the guy, you're the name. Everyone wants a piece of Rob. Man, Rob, please show up with that flowery bag of yours and put it in our cooler. All right, we really want you around here. All right, every day. You can have the Phoenix job or the Milwaukee job. Which one do you want?
Well, Milwaukee.
Why?
Well, they've already got a ring. They know how to do it.
Well,
I have the greatest.
You don't. You weren't there.
I get Dame. I get Giannis. I feel like if I can keep them healthy,
you get Book and KD.
Yeah.
And Beal.
Mm-hmm.
What a horrible situation.
No, you're right. Devin Booker is exactly who I think he is, and he ain't an alpha. He's a beta. Kevin Durant is also a beta. He thinks he's an alpha, and that's the worst kind of beta to have. Isn't a beta that thinks he's an alpha. At least Book just steps into the void when there's a void available to him. He doesn't ever go take anything. But if there's something available to him, he'll go get 40. Kevin Durant will go get 40, but he'll give up 50. And he'll take other guys out of the game. And while I love him, he's a cheat code. He's no longer what he was. I don't want to have to deal with that. I would much rather take the other side of guys that are Dame's an alpha and will act as if and is an alpha, and Giannis too. And I would love to go take that job. I'll take Milwaukee.
Phoenix or Philly, if it comes available.
Geez, both of those are terrible jobs. Philly. I'll take Philly.
They're not terrible. You need to redefine the word terrible.
Well, and terrible in that
terrible.
Phoenix, I think that they deal with indifference down in Phoenix to the extent that you only have absolute lovers and absolute haters. There's no kind of in the middle there in Phoenix. There's a lot going on. A lot of people from other places.
In Philly, you only have haters.
Right.
Who loves you in Philly?
So but I know going in that best case. But I also have there's a fair amount of talent there, and it ain't as difficult in the East to go where I want to go than it is in the West.
I think that the Phoenix job is underrated.
I
think it's over.
I value what you're saying. I do. But right now, do you really want to go deal with all this?
Dude, do you know like the way you're describing a situation with a solid roster? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're poo-pooing this like it's this,
no money and like 8 spots to fill. They subtracted even more money when they upped Grayson Allen's percentage here. So they got 4 dudes, and that's it. They can't afford anything else. They are the worst case scenario, and 2 of them can't stay healthy.
So I don't think they're the worst case scenario.
Well, I'm talking about you're paying Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen, Kevin Durant, a whole bunch of money.
I know, but if you like to use the Philly example, you ride with the dude who has proven 100% of the time that he will wear down and gas out, and you won't be able to do anything when it matters the most.
But I don't need to worry about him as much anymore because I see a Tyrese Maxey who is transcending into something really special. And then I look on the bench, and there's some talent on this team. Buddy Hield, that guy is underutilized and should be doing better. I think I could bring something more to the table with this guy. What's the other big that they run around out there with? Harrington. There's other guys that are being overshadowed that if I was coaching, I go, you know what? I think the problem is I'm expecting Embiid to do too much. I need to take some stuff off his plate.
Back to the point at hand. If you swapped Frank Vogel out with Nick Nurse right now, tonight,
I think you could. You know what? Now this is where we're getting, and I appreciate this part. I think if you took Darvin Ham and put him in Phoenix, and you put Vogel back in LA, both would be much better off because they're not. Both of them are not terrible coaches. The circumstances are awful, and I think both of them might be suited for the other's job.
But do you think if I don't know if you're going to pick the Sixers tonight or not? I don't know if you want to say that now, but I'm not. I'm going to pick the Knicks tonight. And to be clear, I wouldn't pick the Sixers with Frank Vogel as coach if we could swap them out. But would your opinion of them change at all?
No.
Would it worsen? Would it weaken?
No. It would be exactly the
Frank,
same.
Is Frank Vogel the problem in Phoenix?
No, I've kept saying
Okay.
he is not the problem, but he is an issue. The players don't like him. Bradley Beal wouldn't even shake his hand when he ran off the court. It's your fault, my fault, nobody's fault. I can't fire Beal. I still got to write him checks. So, again, Darvin Ham walks in the door, and you go, well, okay, different idea, same quality of coach. Vogel walks back into a place he's familiar with. You know, we ran you out of here before, but you're back with the same plan with different dudes. So let's try this again. That's the problem with the NBA, and I do see a shift coming with the idea of these younger players that are showing up, like JJ Redick, who's getting the run. He's interviewed in Charlotte, and I think it's a worthy idea given where we are now. Because when I'm spending $60 million a year on a guy, I kind of got to listen to what he has to say about who coaches him. I just don't have any other way. I'm tied into this guy for literally almost $1 billion over the next several years. I'm going to listen to who he wants to have coach him.
That's not unfair. I mean, so I agree with that to an extent, but I think there's, and I don't know that you disagree, but I think there's merit to what Chuck is saying. Like, I think there's merit specifically to the point of like just jumping on Frank Vogel and like, he's the problem. Like, if it weren't for Frank Vogel, and I know we keep using him as the example, but like, and could the coaching situation be better? Sure. But I think you could say that about a lot of things individually across all sectors of life.
I think we're
to act like he is weighing them down is absurd.
I think we've got a great way to close this down. And I think the prime example of all this is Missoula up in Boston. Because last year, and from the moment he took over, basically, there have been all kinds of questions like, dude, you are underwater. I mean, this seems to be bigger than you. And Brad Stevens, the current basketball front office suit of the year, stuck with him. I mean, last year was embarrassing. The year before that wasn't awful, but it was not the best situation. And you could have easily said goodbye to Missoula, especially last year, easily. And they stuck with him. And what we saw last night was a team transition into something different. They spanked Miami for a couple of years worth of embarrassment. They sent Miami home limping. And it was on purpose. We are going to unleash whoop ass because we got to put you out of our brain. And Missoula needed to do it too. He needed to coach Spoelstra into vacation. And he did. Now, granted, Spoelstra did it without his best dudes, but he still did it. And I think that was worthy. And, you know, and when you say things like that, you go, man, don't let Darvin Ham go, man. Think about what this place would have been without him.
See, I mean, and sometimes you're just the guy before the guy. You know what I mean? And there's no shame in that either. You know, you're the transitional guy. That was a necessary part of the overall process. But I mean, I found the conversation we've been having to be enlightening in that. I mean, I took what Chuck said somewhat. I mean, well, I took it seriously, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, there's truth to what he's saying, that some people just jump down these throats like this is the magic fix, right? Like this, you know, and I just don't know that that's necessarily true. I think the Boston example is a good one. You know what I mean? But also, I think Tatum is a more, you know, like to live in that example, stable piece to coach around.
All of it matures. Everybody matures together.
It all ultimately depends on the situation and the players and the person who, to your point, you're handing $1 billion of equity to. And, you know, that more than anything, that just proves how Jason Tatum's in a league of his own.